gameranx presents another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight-up gameplay and some of my thoughts on the latest games releasing. As usual, it's your old pal Jake Baldino, and today we're talking about ARMS. ARMS is the newest Nintendo IP, one honestly that totally did not interest me at all, or any of my friends. That debut reveal during the early days of Switch News made it look like another goofy, gimmick-based Nintendo game with characters that are trying way too hard to be memorable. The first impression was kind of obnoxious, but thankfully it turned out to be a charming, competitive, and fun as hell game. First things first, to clear up some confusion, ARMS can absolutely be played in controller mode or with a pro controller. You don't have to resort to motion controls, but I do think they are the most fun, and they emphasize it. Every once in a while I have an issue where something doesn't really register right, but overall I prefer the surprisingly higher accuracy and feel that the motion controlled punching actually provides. This is, of course, personal preference. I get using a controller, I just didn't like the way the controls were mapped, and as of yet there's no way to change them. But will it actually turn out like online Splatoon players' preferences? That I'm not so sure about yet. But ARMS, if you can't tell, is a very basic fighting game in the style of almost boxing. Players choose different fists to slap onto their different characters that have spring arms, and they all have different effects and speeds, and they go at it in various rings. You can punch left and right, often able to maneuver these punches around, as well as block, grab to get through those blocks, punch away and deflect incoming hits, and build up a super meter and use as a super move. It's simple fighting game fare, really, but the differences in fighters and maps and reliance on skill makes it feel a bit more special here. The brilliance, I think, in ARMS' design is that it's a bit slower, since punches are essentially sent out because your arms are springs. When it comes to higher level play, you can't just throw as many punches as possible because you can be left vulnerable. Spacing and positioning and smart punching is all pretty extremely important, and the give and take metagame here works wonderfully. It's really an interesting game because kids can pick up and play and have some fun punching each other in the face, but the more advanced players have just enough here to really sink their teeth into. Couple this with the balancing of characters. I mean, every character here feels somewhat different. There's, the balanced regulars like Springman and Ribbon Girl, the slow, tank-like characters like Master Mummy, faster, agile characters like Ninjara, and characters with weird quirks like Helix. Seriously, he just gives me the creeps. Bigger characters hit harder and can resist flinching during some attacks, but they're way slower, while faster or smaller characters can jump higher, punch faster, and dodge better. And like I previously mentioned, the map design here for such a seemingly simple play is damn creative. There are levels with like breakable objects in the middle that encourage you to kind of use things as a shield and throw curved punches around objects. There are levels with moving platforms to hop on and float around, and parking lots filled with cars to climb over. The levels are part of what makes it for me, and the variation encourages you to get better and learn to fight smarter. But besides punching your friends split screen or tabletop mode or online, there's a single player tournament to work your way through. You could breeze through it like most fighting game tournaments or towers or championships, but I believe there are 10 levels of increasing difficulty for it here. So you can play it over and over again, and it gets fairly challenging by like seriously the second run. But along with that, there are various different playable modes. There's 1 versus 100, which sounds pretty much exactly like you'd expect. It's simple and fun. There's also a slam dunk contest focusing on grabs, which for me was pretty one note and a little too simplistic for my taste. Then there's target practice that really lets you see how much you suck at aiming your punches, but that's good with friends. And then there's a volleyball mode that is extremely fun with friends. It's creative but simple, and it shakes up their formula a little bit. Are all these modes enough of a package though? That's where I'm a little iffy. I've seen some people think that these are like throwaway modes, while I've seen other people have huge fun times with friends diving into these things. They're not totally shallow, but not quite deep or complex, But these modes are worked into online play, and pretty well. Of course, there's ranked and unranked play with a decent amount of connectivity options, surprisingly, but there's party mode, which puts you in a party group and rotates a bunch of different game modes and round variations and boss characters, and it's great. It's an awesome way to play online if you want more than just 1v1 action, but you still don't want to go too hardcore with ranked matches. It's a perfect, accessible mode that I see having some life to it. And like I said, surprisingly, so far so good on Nintendo's online services, connected to matches no problem with minimal lag. But the few gameplay flaws are apparent online and with the 1 versus 100 mode. The game is very much designed for 1v1, so introducing another character to the mix never really feels like it quite works. There's a 3-player free-for-all which just doesn't totally click with me. Characters will single out one and just knock them out and then move on to 1v1. Same goes for the 1 versus 100 mode. Since you can really only work on one enemy at a time with the lock on, it just doesn't feel quite right. And the online community is still in its early stages, but grab spamming is definitely a thing. Sometimes it seems like it can be really effective too. There are ways around it, and I did get used to dealing with it and working around it, but early players should be warned and know that going in for the first time. But so far, it seems like if you play smart, you'll survive. But the game also looks freaking fantastic. I mean, sure, with the Switch, you know automatically that the resolution isn't going to be ideal, but it's bright, colorful, and it's a detailed, cartoony game that runs at 60 FPS. Well, like I said earlier, the visual design is obnoxious, at least it's distinct. And I know I'm always down for a sharp, colorful game, but the music and the menus and the presentation, coupled with the game design, really makes ARMS feel like a high-quality game release. But it's really just up to you to be down for dropping full price on it. I like it enough that I think my money was well justified, and I'm lucky enough to have a friend or two that also enjoys it. That might not be the case for you, or maybe you just won't like any of the additional modes. But I like ARMS a lot, and I see myself playing it for quite some time. But that's how a Before You Buy works. You know the deal. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion thrown in there, but now I definitely want to hear yours down in the comments. I know us Switch fans are a very talkative, opinionated bunch, so I definitely want to hear how you guys feel about ARMS, especially the fact that it's a new Nintendo IP being introduced into the world of Nintendo. There's a lot of eyes on it, and I want to know what you're thinking, whether you've played the game and you've hopped in, or if you're on the outside looking in. I want to hear what you're thinking. But let's talk about anything ARMS down in the comments below. I'll be there as much as possible answering your questions, but if you got anything more for me, hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as usual at Jake Baldino. But you know, clicking the like button helps us out a ton, and we really do appreciate it. But if you subscribe, if you haven't already, you should, because we put out stuff like this all the time. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.